Welcome back to another episode on the regalchange YouTube channel. My name is Thaddeus, and today the topic is going to be on how your dark side and realizing the dark side on your spiritual path and just the path of enlightenment in general is going to show you just exactly what you're capable of and the dark side of being able to see what you're capable of. Because a lot of the times when we are going through life and we're finally waking up, one of the most difficult aspects of waking up is actually overcoming the obstacle of apathy and seeing how there are so many people around us that are not living in the truth. And it's sometimes hard to want to socialize with people because you can see that they really don't care and they really don't understand exactly what you're talking about or what you're saying most of the time. And it's not necessarily because they're stupid, it's just that they're not spiritually in tune with who they are and what they're about. These kinds of people are, for all intents and purposes, they can only see matter, okay? At this kind of place that I'm at right now, I can feel the spiritual energy of everything all around me. And I can feel the life force of the trees, even though the trees are sleeping, so to speak. You can still feel there's a life force to everything around us, even to the river here. There's like this life force of being itself. And when we are on the spiritual path and we are trying to overcome the obstacle of apathy, it can be very challenging because you see so many people around you really just don't give a crap. They really just don't care. And it's not like they don't care about life in the sense, it's just more like they don't care about their spirituality, and that's making them spiritually dead. People that are spiritually dead are the people that you want to stay away from, and unfortunately that's a lot of people in our society. But if you're looking out and you see the characteristics of somebody that is spiritually dead, meaning if they are speaking words that bring destruction, despair, sorrow, and not for any intents or purposes of grieving in a healthy way or to understand a situation, a solemn situation at a deeper level, these are the kinds of people that are only going to put out things into the world that they think that by doing so will make them feel alive. If you think that you can only feel alive by trying to put others down, that's not a good sign. and of course, like, because here's the thing, at the end of the day, once you do become more spiritually awakened to the reality of life, you start to see that everything that you are and everything that you are about in this life is merely a reflection of you in one way, shape, or form or another. It's exactly like the reflection in the river here, and you can see the rocks and everything all around. This is one of the reasons I love being out in nature. And whenever I do need to go into nature for any kind of particular reason, more so I do it to ground myself. Because just being in this spiritual place, like, look around. It's a very I don't even know the word for it. There is no word for it. There's just a simple peace to it. There's a simplicity that implies peacefulness and a simplicity that implies the flow of life. And when we are getting to understand the nature of our dark side, it can be kind of frightening and daunting because we can see just exactly how capable we are of destruction and potentially hurting other people. And it wasn't until I realized my potential for hurting other people that I began to understand what it's like to have more respect for myself. And because when you can see that you actually are capable of the 7 deadly sins, okay? You are capable of wrath. You're capable of greed. You're capable of lust. You're capable of gluttony. You're capable of all of these things, right? And it's not necessarily something that you're proud of or that you want to have happen in your life, but you know that you're capable of this thing and these sins. And what it really comes down to is, in order to transcend and accept the dark side of who you are, you have to accept that there are going to be people that want to see you not succeed. There are people that want to see you beaten down. And there are people that want to see you being kicked while you're down. It's not necessarily a fun thing to realize, but that's exactly what it's like to be in the world that we are today. We live in a world where, well, dignity, honor, and integrity are seemingly memories of a far distant past that has no significance in the modern day time, which is not necessarily something. I would say loyalty as well. Loyalty. When you realize that you're capable of being disloyal, but you choose not to act in such a way, then you again have more respect for yourself, because you understand that you are legitimately capable of destroying someone's heart if you wanted to. And Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who was the writer of the Gulag Archipelago, and he was in the concentration camps in Russia during the 20s, 30s, and 40s. Well, he was in the war, World War II, for the 30s and 40s, I suppose, technically. But for all intents and purposes, he was there. And he was in these concentration camps set up by the Russian authorities at the time. And something that he says is that in this book is that the line between good and evil draws in between the heart of every man and woman. It's a hell of a statement. But what he's saying is that we're all capable of destruction, we're all capable of evil, but we're also all capable of good and justice and purity if we so choose. And it's all about our ability to choose. Once you begin to realize that you have a choice to choose justice or injustice, this gives you a certain edge to your life. You are constantly, especially on the spiritual path, you are constantly understanding and appreciating what our darkness shows us. Because what does our darkness show us? Darkness shows us power. It shows us strength. Whereas the light shows something that is more along the lines of benevolence, of virtue. And when you are not in violation of the good and the light, you can remain in the light. But whenever you cross the violation, and sometimes you have to violate, well, you don't have to violate the light, but sometimes in this path and in this journey, you have to violate the tendency and the proclivity to want to choose light, because sometimes you have to go to the dark in order to understand what's on the other side of that light. Sometimes you don't get to have the light without the dark. Sometimes you can imagine all of the light that you want, but it's not really light. It's not really purity. It's not really what you think and what you're trying to set out to do. It's really not what it is in your mind. And ultimately, it is the mind that makes things real to some degree or another, but it's the heart that allows you to live a authentic life. And part of living in the heart is being able to accept both the light and the dark. If you do not accept the dark, you cannot accept the light. And that is one of the reasons why in all of these stories of enlightenment, of all these stories of Buddha or Jesus, or like Jesus had to go to the desert for 40 days and 40 nights and had to resist the temptations of the devil for those 40 days and 40 nights, and he had to fast, he had to do all these things, and he was tempted multiple times. And Buddha, right before his enlightenment, according to the story here, according to the stories and legends of Buddha, he was tempted by certain spirits as well. So all in all, our darkness is actually going to be the thing that sets us free. That was a miswording there for a second, but our darkness is going to be what sets us free. And when we are able to have that being set free of accepting the dark. Now, what's the difference between acknowledging the dark and accepting the dark? Acknowledging the dark is seeing the darkness, but then not doing anything about it. Whereas accepting the darkness is seeing the darkness and doing something about it. Well, sometimes the best thing to do is to do nothing. That's part of the freedom of choice and the free will that we have. Sometimes the only thing that you can do with the dark is to choose to do nothing until the time presents itself to where you can do something. But other times, if there's darkness, you must expose it. Especially if we are to be actually who we are supposed to be as godly people, as people that are striving for righteousness and excellence and purity, we have to expose the dark. We must expose evil in accordance to the will of God. Now, the other thing that you can do with the darkness is you can actually fight it. You can actually fight the dark. But that's not always the best way to go about it. Sometimes, in order to accept the dark, you have to look at it as something that is not an enemy. If you look at the darkness as an enemy, you're bound to hurt yourself more in the long run altogether. But, ladies and gentlemen, it may come as a surprise to you, but the wind is a bit chilly. It's not too windy at all, but man, that wind is a bit chilly. So I do like coming out and doing these videos for you guys and providing content that is hopefully insightful and full of the wisdom and motivation and inspiration that you need and really desire. And with that being said, may the grace of Jesus be with us all.